Okay, it's 45, so let's begin. Hello, I'm Henry Troy. I'm an EFL lecturer at Nagoya University of Foreign Studies. Today's presentation, helping students to differentiate fact from fiction in the age of fake news. I should also mention, because it's relevant, that I teach a course in journalistic writing to third years at the university. And I also did my undergraduate degree in journalism a long time ago. And that's where my interest comes from in this. And this is where I use these activities that you're going to see today. Just a quick overview of what we're doing. I've already done an introduction. We're going to go straight into an activity, which is a real or fake news activity. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'll then talk about the significance of these types of activity. Then we're going to look at our second activity, which involves identifying reliable sources. We're going to practice it together. And then I'm just going to finish with some other tips and other possible activities you might use for the same purpose. So let's go straight in with an activity. And it is very simple. I will be showing you some news stories, and I'll probably just read the first line or the headline of the stories, and I want you to guess if they are real or fake news. And my faithful assistant, Jared, will have a poll, so you can just click whether you think it's real or not. Here we go. The first one says that 18% of the world's population have never seen the moon. I'll let you just browse the rest. Okay, and if Jared could show the poll, you can have a vote. I'll just give sort of 20 seconds to vote. So don't worry too much. It's not a test. Okay, shall we see what people said? Okay, so most people think it's fake. A couple of people think it's true. Let's find out the truth. It is indeed fake news. Well done to the majority. This is made up by a YouTuber, Jax Films. He does these fake facts videos, which are quite entertaining. I recommend you check them out. Next one. Smelling rosemary can improve your memory by up to 75%. Again, I'll let you read the rest. Okay, so we'll have another poll to find out what you think. Is this true or not? See if you can keep up your collective 100% record. Maybe 5 more seconds of voting time. Okay, let's see what the results say. Okay, a slightly smaller majority, but again, the majority think it's not true. Let's see if you're correct. You are indeed. What a smart bunch. This one is a little bit more complicated backstory than the first one. It was reported in some media, like the Daily Mail, bastion of truth that it is. And there is some evidence, perhaps, that rosemary may result in small benefits to memory, but nothing like this. It's definitely an exaggeration based on a very small study. And this belief about rosemary is very widespread. Okay, let's do another one. A man pretended to be deaf for 62 years to avoid listening to his wife. Okay, and again, let's see if you can continue your impeccable record. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay, hopefully we have enough votes now. Let's see what people said. So this time much closer, and a small majority think it's true. Let's have a look at reality. It is false again. This was widely shared on Twitter. And I included this one because sometimes people perhaps want to believe things or believe things because of their comedy value, but it doesn't mean they're true. Final one. A woman had a tumor successfully removed from her brain after a voice in her head told her to go to the doctor and get a scan. Okay, let's kick off our final poll. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay, let's see the results. 50-50. That's always nice when that happens. Okay, so let's see the truth. This is true. I absolutely love this story. You can read it in more detail. This is a recorded presentation, so you can always click on this later. But yes, it was reported in the British Medical Journal. Okay, so we can see that some stories can be unbelievable but true, and some can sound perhaps true but be false. So how this would work in the classroom, I would first introduce the activity, of course, and then we would do it very much like today. I actually use slightly different stories in the classroom, but pretty much like today, where you show a slideshow and they guess whether it's real or fake. If you have time, you might allow them to discuss as well. And then I allow them to research two news stories, try to find two news stories which are unbelievable but true. I give them a couple of sites which are good for that type of story, and also to invent their own piece of fake news. So they'd write just a short summary for each, and then they'd be in groups and they would present their two true stories and their one false story. Of course, they wouldn't say which is which, and they would maybe mix up the order. And then they interrogate each other and guess which story is false. So that's how it would work in the classroom. The significance of these types of activity, I don't think I even need to say how there are real world implications to the amount of misinformation that's reported and people's inability to critically assess information. So it has, real world implications. On a more simple level, it's good for discussion. The students tend to enjoy these types of activities and it provokes discussion. A bigger one, informed citizens, is I don't pretend my course or these little activities are going to create informed citizens, but I certainly think it helps. And it's also useful for academic writing, where we need to assess sources for their reliability. So yeah, it has significance, I think. So moving on to the second activity, which is connected to identifying reliable sources. This is, of course, extremely important in academic writing. Anyone that's taught writing has, I'm sure, had students giving sources which are inappropriate. So this is an important skill. It's also useful for presentations, where again, you're going to be quoting sources. And what I use is I use a checklist that the students go through to check the reliability of the source. Let's have a look at that checklist. here it is. You might, I think everyone's camera's off apart from me, so it should be no problem. You might want to take a photo of this slide because we're going to use it in the activity coming up. Going through it, number one, does it have two named sources? Things like relevant people, surveys, official reports, etc. Next one, is it from a well-established, reputable publication or an official source? Official source would be something like a government website. Well-established, reputable publication, they can establish by Wikipedia, probably. Go to Wikipedia and see if it is well-established, how long it's been around. Reputable, of course, you know, it's a little bit of a subjective one, but again, reading up on the publication can help you decipher how reputable it is. Next, number three is very important. Can you find this information in other articles, right? If it's a reliable source, usually the information will not only be in that source. Of course, it could just be in that source, that's possible, but usually it will be reported in other sources too. Number four is a little bit more tricky. Is the information logical and believable? Again, this is not 100% necessary. Sometimes stories are unbelievable but true and from reputable sources, but generally articles need to be logical and believable. And the number five is probably the trickiest for students. It's fine to have an opinion piece. It's fine to have a factual article, and it's fine to have a mix, but the problem is when a source presents fact as opinion or as opinions as fact. So it helps if they can decipher those two. There's also a bonus, which is even trickier, which is, does the writer have an ulterior motive or seem to have an ulterior motive? Some type of advertising perhaps. So, but that's a bonus. I don't usually use that. I hope you've taken a picture of this one because we're going to move on now. So I'd like you guys to try it out in groups. And this is you're going to need to take a picture of this slide as well. The process, number one, you search for the articles that I'm going to show on the next page. I'll put them in the chat in a minute. And I want you to skim read the articles, don't spend long. And with your partner or group members, go through this checklist on the previous page. And of course, the more yeses there are in the answers to those checklist questions, the more likely it is to be reliable. If you get 3 yeses or fewer, especially 2 or 3, perhaps answer the bonus question as well. And then I recommend you do this. We're only going to spend about 5 minutes on this. So I recommend you go through it in real time with your partners, and perhaps if possible, someone could share screen maybe, or you just discuss it as you're reading. Okay, let's get on with it then. So the links are here. Sorry, my mistake. Here are the links. I'm just going to copy and paste them very quickly into the chat. I doubt you'll have time to go through all of them. Sorry about this. I doubt you'll have time to go through all of them with your group members. So just, you know, even if you just get through one, that's absolutely fine. Here's the first one. And the second one. And the third one. And Jared's going to put you into small groups. And yeah, like I said, just do as much as you can. I don't expect all of these to be gone through in the 5 minutes I'm giving you. It's not much time. Okay, could Jared sort out the breakout rooms? Just 5 minutes, like I said. If you only get through one article, that's absolutely fine. Hello, everyone. You'll forgive me if I don't ask for feedback. I'm just going to go through sort of by myself just to save time. You saw this very exciting article about carbon neutrality. So if we go through the questions quickly, going back through the questions, does it have 2 named sources? This is kind of yes. It has a named source here, Chief Cabinet Secretary, and it also quotes just the government. But it's definitely one source and possibly two. Next article, oh, sorry, next question. Is it well established? We can see up here 1922, and Mainichi is a well established publication, newspaper. Other articles, if you Google it, the answer is clearly yes to this one. Is it logical and believable? Yep, it's believably boring. And does it clearly separate fact from fiction? Yes, this is a factual article. So the answer would be yes for all of them. Except perhaps number one's debatable. So it's a factual, reputable source. This exciting article here with a very realistic picture. Does it have two named sources? It definitely has one. I mean, of course, sorry about this ad. It definitely has the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Of course, it's a fake quote, but looking from a student's point of view, they might not know that. So kind of yes/no. Is it from a well-established, reputable publication? Now, this one, is The Onion well-established? Yes. If they used Wikipedia or Google, though, they would know it is a satire site. So some students might write yes here, but if they check properly, they would write. I mean, it is reputable, but they should know it's a satire source. Can you find the information referenced in other articles? No. Is the information logical and believable? No. That should be the clearest no. Does it separate fact and opinion? It sounds like it does. When you read it, it sounds like it does. So looking at it from a student, I think they mount to yes. So you'd get perhaps two yeses, perhaps. So less likely to be reputable, but the key one is it's not logical and it's not believable. And the final one, military diet. This one a little bit tricky, perhaps, for students to realize the issues of this. Does it have two named sources? No, it does not. No sources. Is it from a well-established, reputable publication? Again, the answer is no. Can you find the information referenced elsewhere? Yes, but if you look at a lot of the other articles, they're dismissing this diet and dismissing this idea. Is the information logical and believable? This one, I think it depends on your viewpoint. For me, no, but perhaps some people might say yes. Does the article clearly separate fact and opinion? This is again debatable. For me, again, no, but the students might struggle with that one. But the key is they should get a clear no to two of the questions and hopefully three or four. So hopefully they're starting to see it's not such a reliable source. Okay, let's move on and finish this off. I've just got a few things to finish. These are some bonus tips. I'm not going to go through them in great detail now. You can check them on my recorded presentation. There's a couple of quizzes here, which do pretty much what I did today, but might be a little bit too advanced for some students. There's also just asking them to do a Google search. Is it true that, a Google search can often answer that question? Here are some other activities and ideas. A fact or opinion activity where you give them sentences with facts and opinions or a mix of both, and they have to guess which is which. Multiple sources rule in a writing class, so they have every time they quote a piece of information from somewhere else, they have to cite two sources, not just one. And this one I really like. That must be true activity. You ask them to think of something they're sure is 100% true, like water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. And then they have to research if it is actually 100% true, if there are any exceptions. And the answer to that one, by the way, is yes, there are exceptions. It depends on location and altitude and stuff. Again, it helps with critical thinking. Sorry to rush through this. I've already said all of this, but my point here is my aim is not to create a foolproof system. I don't pretend that this system will never result in misinformation getting through some gaps, but it's, again, to improve critical thinking, to provoke discussion, and to help students find reliable sources. Sorry to rush the last part. Those are some references from today. Thank you very much. I'm aware time is up, but I'm happy to take questions. I don't know if it's going to be here or elsewhere, but thank you for joining. I hope it was interesting.
I think if people would like to stay and ask questions, they're welcome to. We're going into break time now, so you're free to take your break, but I'll leave this room open for just a little longer before we move to the main room.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm happy to hang around for 5 minutes or so if anyone has any questions. If not, we can finish.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question, Henry? Thanks a lot for that. Really interesting activities. Can I just sorry if you mentioned it and I missed it, but at what point during your you mentioned this is for your journalistic writing course?
Yeah,
it's part of it. So at what point of the course do you do these activities?
So the assessing, what did I call it? Finding reliable sources, assessing reliable sources, that one. I actually do that more with first year writing.
Okay.
They do academic writing. So that one I do with first year writing. The fake news, real news one, I throw it into a lesson at some point. The first thing they usually do is learn how to do an interview. So I don't need to throw it in at the beginning of course because the interview it's not so relevant. But I'd certainly throw it in before they start writing news articles. Right. Because that's when it becomes super relevant. But yeah, it doesn't have a defined place in the course. That the real fake news one, the fact opinion one, yeah, I just say I try to do it in the first half of the course. Before they end every course with a big project. So the first semester they end by making a newspaper. So I'd absolutely want it in there before then. But yeah, I throw these activities in, especially since they're supposed to be fun as well. So if I've got a lesson which is a little bit heavy, I might put those in to lighten it up as well.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Good.
Cheers.
Anyone else? Or... Okay. Cheers. Yeah, sorry if I rushed over the last few slides. If you missed anything, you can check the recording later. Cheers.